Hello, and welcome back. So, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is John. I'm an online transformation focused coach, specialising in helping people get body transformations, whether it is just feeling better in the clothes, just looking better on the holiday, looking better in the mirror, or doing photo shoots. Now, I really specialise in helping people who just can't seem to stick to a diet no matter how much they try. They've either been trying, and for whatever reason, they just can't seem to stay consistent, or they get to a point where they're a little bit consistent, and then at some point along the way, just lose motivation and end up falling off track, starting again on Monday, the whole shebang, right? You all know the crack by now. So today I'm going to be taking you through the exact reasons why your diet keeps on failing and why you just can't seem to stick to one, and exactly how you can overcome it and how I help all of my clients overcome it as well. So I'm just about to head into the kitchen. I've got steak for breakfast today. Well, breakfast. I'm currently on my own photo shoot prep, and I think it's, 9 days out as of today. So I've got steak sandwiches, avocado and onions for my breakfast. And then, I'm going to take you through a couple of different bits and the reasons why you can't stick to a diet. So let's go to the kitchen. Now, I'm currently at my girlfriend's house, and I know for a fact that she will be watching this. So I am going to make sure that I keep the kitchen as tidy as possible. So what I'm actually doing here is just prepping my food for the day ahead, because today I've got the luxury of being able to work from her house in the morning. I've just finished up with my check-ins about 25 minutes ago. Been for a little bit of a walk to and get some steps in, because my steps are currently a little bit higher with me being 9 days out from my photo shoot prep. And what I'm doing here, like I said, is really focusing on just getting my nutrition sorted for the day, because my morning work tasks have all been done. And I've now got a business call in 45 minutes. So what I need to do is make sure that all of this is done first, and I'm just trying to make sure that I keep it as nutrient dense as possible. So like I said, for my breakfast, which I will be getting onto in just a sec, I will be doing steak and avocado on toast, and that is going to get me plenty of B vitamins, plenty of good fats. We've got some fiber in there through the onions as well, and a couple of different types of vitamins there. And the reason that I'm doing that is because, especially once you get towards the end of a prep, it's very, very easy to... I'm just trying to find my favourite seasoning here, but it looks like we may have run out. No, we haven't. By the way, if any of you are not on this, please start using this. Garlic aromat is a fucking game changer, and we've got loads of it left as well, so I'm buzzing. So, as I said, I'm making sure that I get some good nutrient-dense foods in. So sweet potato is very, very nutrient dense and very good bang for your buck. Plenty of fiber, not really that many calories in. So that's exactly why I'm choosing this. And then later on, I will be having that with my beef and veg. That will be my final meal of the day. Just get some pepper on there. That will be my final meal of the day today. And that will be with some ground beef, like I said. And then I will be having some baby potatoes in a sec as well. Get those seasoned. This is just proof that I do use seasoning, by the way. So we'll get those seasoned. And as I said, I will be having some baby potatoes with some eggs and egg whites very soon as well. So, number one, the reason why most of you will be struggling to stick to a diet is because you're not mapping it out correctly. Now, when I'm saying you're not mapping it out correctly, I mean most of you that are watching this probably don't even map your fat loss out or physique transformation out at all. Now, every single person that comes to work with me, I will show it on the screen just here, gets a very, very clear roadmap of exactly what phase they're supposed to be in. So it'll be aggressive fat loss, it could be maintenance, it could be a diet break to reduce that diet fatigue. We could obviously have, social occasions and holidays, social events, weekends away, and all the rest of it planned in. Now, the reason why this is so important is because when you actually start your fat loss, if you don't have an end goal in sight, what that's going to make it incredibly difficult to do is actually stick to it in the longer term. Because when you don't have an end goal in sight and you're, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks in, and it's completely normal for motivation to dip after, I tend to find with my clients, around about 4 to 6 weeks, even if they're seeing results, because, all the adrenaline's worn off, all the dopamine's worn off, it's no longer new. And then you realize that you've actually just got to keep on putting the work in consistently over time. It's very, very easy to let that make you feel unmotivated, and then potatoes are on the floor. It'll be 250 grams instead of 260 grams today by the looks of it now. So like I said, you'll get to a point where your motivation will dip, and that is completely normal. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or there's anything wrong with the diet. It just means that you're human, because motivation dips for every single person in every single diet at some point. Now, there's definitely points that I've felt motivated during this, and like I said, my clients' motivation tends to dip around 4 to 6 weeks. Now, let's say that you're 4 to 5 weeks into a fat loss phase and you feel that your motivation is starting to dip, and you look at your roadmap, your tracker, to see exactly where it is that you need to be right now and exactly where it is that you're heading. Now, if you're 4 to 5 weeks in and your motivation starts to get a little bit lower, and you can see that you've got a diet break coming up in 3 weeks, it makes it so much easier for you to just stick with it and understand that you're going to sometimes feel a little bit hungry, a little bit tired, and a little bit bored and unmotivated. Now, when you see that you've only got 3 weeks to push through until you get a maintenance break, it just makes it so much easier to adhere. And the reason why we map this out, or the way that we map this out, is we look at, one, what your starting point is. So if you're at a much higher body fat, you're going to obviously need a much longer fat loss phase with more regular diet breaks in. Normally a diet break is just a week at maintenance, so you can go out and enjoy a few social occasions and really reduce diet fatigue. Normally would end up lowering training volume during that week as well. But like I said, the way that we map that out is depending on your body fat levels and depending where you actually want to get to. We will map that out normally for 6 months ahead. Now, for some people, that might just look like an 8-week aggressive fat loss phase, have a diet break for a week, and then go straight into an improvement phase, okay? If you're at a higher body fat, that might look like an 8-week diet break, 8-week diet break, 8-week diet break again, until we get to where you actually want to be. And then we can start to look at really building muscle, focusing on maintenance, or focusing on even being in a slight surplus from there. Okay, and that's why, number one, you have to set your roadmap out and your targets, because it's going to make it so much easier to stick to. It's going to stop that feeling of, oh, when is this going to be finished? When is this going to end? When am I going to get to have more food? When do I have to stop doing so many steps? When can I have a little bit of a devolume or a deload from training? And when you know that it's coming, you just stick to it so much better. So that's number one, like I said, is, by the way, they're all fucking beautifully seasoned there. Just proof that I do actually use seasoning on my food. So like I said, that's number one. So you need to make sure that you're doing that to stick to it in the longer term and just really reduce that kind of guesswork and wondering when everything's going to finish. And when it comes to number two, me prepping this food is actually a very good cue for this. You're not being prepared, okay? Now, a lot of people, especially when they come to start with me in the beginning, they will have been trying to lose body weight for a while or been unsure of how to actually do it. And one mistake that a lot of people make is they just prep things either on the day or they just eat on the go. Now, this is incredibly difficult because if you don't prep your food ahead, I generally recommend most of my clients track their food 3 days ahead so they know what they're supposed to be eating, and obviously prep some good tasting meals like I'm doing right now. But like I said, you need to make sure that you're prepping multiple days ahead if you want things to be as easy as possible. And like I said, make sure the food is well seasoned like you're seeing me do right now. I love sweet potatoes, I love potatoes, I love steak, I love beef, I love avocado, I love sourdough bread. So I'm prepping all of these foods ahead, because if you're constantly eating on the go or you're just waking up in the morning and guessing what it is that you need to eat, that's going to cause more stress because you're going to be rushing around in the morning trying to make your food. Or if you're on the go or at work, you're going to be sat there stressing, wondering what it is that you need to eat, before you then end up just going and getting a ready meal from M&S or Sainsbury's, or, you know, going and getting something from Tesco or whatever it might be, and then just trying to cram all of these calories in. And then you get to the end of the day, you're absolutely starving. And then you realize that you've gone over your calories, or you're going to go over your calories if you eat any more food. And then that's generally when people end up just throwing the towel in or spending the entire night hungry, thinking of food with lots of food noise. So prep foods days ahead, track them days ahead, foods that you enjoy with plenty of protein, plenty of fiber, and plenty of micronutrients, so that you can actually stay full, enjoy the foods that you eat, and not be sat there constantly thinking about food all the time, because you know exactly what it is that you're supposed to be eating, you know exactly when your next meal is coming, and again, you know that you're actually going to enjoy them. So don't be afraid to use seasonings on your food as well. A lot of like old school bodybuilders or old school coaches, God, my eyes are fucking watering from these onions, man. A lot of old school bodybuilders or old school coaches will have you believe that you can't use seasoning on your food because it's going to add loads of extra calories and loads of extra salt. Look, unless you're a fucking bodybuilder, you don't need to worry about salt intake. Like, I'm obviously not a bodybuilder. As you can see, I've just put plenty of salt in my food. I don't track my salt. I just use a good amount of salt that is going to make the food taste great and also help me stay hydrated. Holy shit, my eyes. And that is going to help me stay hydrated throughout the day. So like I said, don't be afraid to make your food taste good, and don't be afraid to use seasonings because they are not the enemy at all. So as you can see here, the food that I'm about to have right now is actually pretty fun. I'm just about to put my onions in the pan, and then I'm going to use a little bit of olive oil to saute my onions. And that will lead me on to tip number 3, which I am going to go back to the office to take you through. Tip number 3, by the way, I do actually have socks on, just in case you see my ankles and thinking that I'm doing this barefoot. So, tip number 3 is that you are not prepared or even sometimes willing to accept that motivation is going to drop off. This is going to happen. This is going to happen to every single person, regardless, and I mentioned this in one of the previous clips very briefly, regardless of how well your fat loss goes initially, regardless of how you feel at the beginning, regardless of if you think this is the time to lock in, regardless of whether this is a perfect schedule with no social occasions and no distractions, at around 6 weeks-ish maximum, your motivation will start to dip. And that's ultimately where your discipline is going to take place. Now, I know it's like very like PT saying and people are going to get bored. This is why it's so important to be prepared for that and have an incredibly strong reason why you're actually starting it. When I start to work with somebody initially, the very first thing that I will say to them on the consultation or on the first chat that we have is, what is the actual reason that you want to achieve this goal? What is fixed in your life when we achieve this goal? You know, why is it important to you? What's the actual reason? And when you've achieved this goal, what gets better for you? Like what, you know, and if the reason is, I just want to lose 5 pounds. Why? Well, I don't really know. Well, then if you don't know, you need to have a sit and think whether it's actually a goal worth working towards. Now, if it's a case of what I hear a lot from people might be, I want to lose body fat. Why do you want to lose body fat? Because I'm going on holiday this year, right? Okay, why is your holiday suddenly better if you lose body fat? It's better because I will feel better in my own skin and I'm going to feel confident. Okay, cool. What happens when you feel more confident and you're more confident in your own skin? Well, then I'm going to, be able to get in photos with my friends. Okay, cool. What happens when you get in photos with your friends? Well, I can finally be proud of something that I've achieved because for years and years and years I've gone on holiday and, I haven't been able to achieve anything and I always look out of shape. Okay, cool. What's going to change in your life when you realize that you can accomplish hard things? Oh, well, I'll be more confident in my day to day and I'll be able to get I'll be able to see start seeing this person that I like at work or in my friendship group or whatever it might be. Okay, cool. What happens when you start seeing this person from work or, get in a relationship that makes you feel good? Oh, well, then I'll no longer be lonely. And then boom, like that. That's what the actual reason is. It's that this person wants to have more confidence so that they can have better relationships and they'll no longer feel lonely in their day-to-day life. And that's why when I coach, it goes so much further beyond the fat loss. It goes so much further. It goes to, again, this is why I do my psychology courses, because people don't just come to work with me for the fat loss. There is always a reason. And when you understand what your reason is, and you've actually sat and taken the time to think deeply about it and think about the reasons why you're doing this, well, then you're going to be so much more motivated and disciplined. And then when the motivation drops off, you'll understand your reason why. And if that reason is genuinely important to you, you will continue to push through. And then tip number 4, this is the biggest one for a lot of people. Self-sabotage, right? This is something that I've learned a lot about in the psychology courses that I've done. Self-sabotage is your brain's way of protecting yourself. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you a deep dive into psychology because you'll probably turn the video off if you haven't already. But when it comes to self-sabotage, you've got your conscious brain, which is the part of your brain that you think with, the part of the brain that you make decisions with. And then you've got your subconscious brain, which is generally responsible for reactions, emotions, the way that you think about yourself, the way that you feel about yourself, and if there's a certain situation, the way that you will naturally react to that. Now, of course, you can counteract those reactions by consciously making effort to react in a different way. But if it comes to the subconscious, that will be the initial reaction. So for an example, if you go off plan one day on a week and then immediately you start going, oh fuck, I've gone off my plan, this has happened, I've done it again, I've missed out my diet, now I'm just going to spend the entire week and do absolutely nothing. Or I'm going to go completely off plan the entire weekend, eat 4,000 calories and sabotage all of my progress from the week before. Now, that is because you've got so much proof that every single time that your diet gets difficult, you just fuck the whole thing off. You start to eat whatever you want, you stop training, you stop doing your activity, and you literally just sabotage the entire process. This is so common for a lot of people because if you don't have the genuine belief or the proof that you can stick to it, your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to make you safe. So by keeping you in the exact same position and withholding that part of your identity that you just give up when things get difficult, even though it's not beneficial for you, your brain takes that as, I'm going to keep this person safe, I'm going to keep myself safe, and I'm just going to go back to being the way that I believe that I truly am. The only way that you can move beyond this is by recognizing when those things are going to happen and consciously making the effort to move through those difficult times. And that might sound like shit advice, but unfortunately, sometimes there's not going to be a tip or a trick. This is why you have to have the expectation that the change is going to be difficult, because when motivation dies and you maybe lose a little bit of momentum, you have a bad weekend where you go off plan all weekend and you haven't tracked anything, that's where you're going to have your first wobble, and it is going to happen. Believe me, it's going to happen because everybody does it. I've done it a million times in the past. All of my clients have done it at some point. But the most important thing and the best part about having a coach is that you've got somebody to help you recognize what's just happened and help keep you accountable and keep you on track to move beyond those issues. Because like I said, if you just go back into that hole of where you were, sabotage all your progress, then once again, you've given yourself proof that when things get difficult, you don't stick with it. You just sack the whole thing off. And unfortunately, there's no secret tip or trick for that one. You just have to, one, be consciously aware of the fact that that's what's going on. So again, the perfect example was the weekend one I've just talked about. Or for an example, if something kind of puts a bit of a bump in the road, like, you know, you've got a family member in hospital or something like that, or you've just gone through a problem with your relationship and you went and ate the hospital food, or you just went out for drinks and a pint and a burger with your mates. And then you go, oh, well, it's just this one day and, I never normally stick to this, so I may as well just fuck the whole thing off. That isn't the thing that sabotages your progress. The thing that sabotages your progress is the bit that comes after. It's always the bit that comes after, because one day, if you go off plan, is a drop in the bucket. It does not make a difference. But if you do it again and again and again and again, and you consistently do that over the week or over the days, and then you do that for weeks or months on end, that is the thing that's sabotaging your progress. And everybody makes mistakes. Every single person does. There's nothing wrong with you because you've made a mistake. Ultimately, making a mistake just means that you're human. And the most important thing about making that mistake is not the mistake in itself, but how you look at that and how you bounce back from that and how you recognize that one mistake does not determine the outcome of the result. You have to be willing to accept that at points this is going to be uncomfortable, there's going to be an identity shift, you're going to have to start looking at yourself in a different way, and at some points you're not going to believe in yourself. You're just not. And that's totally fine because not everybody does. Again, I'm running a business and sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes I don't believe in myself, but I know deep down that I'm a good coach, that I care about my clients, that I work incredibly hard to increase my knowledge and give my clients the best service possible. I work very hard with my content like I'm doing right now. And sometimes I don't feel like doing it, but I just do it anyway. And now that I've got so much proof that when things do get difficult, and I've pushed beyond these difficult points in my business over the last few years, I've got proof that I'm always okay, and not just okay, but always come out the other side of it better because I've learned the lessons and I'm now self-aware of when these hard times are coming. And if it's my fault, because sometimes it is. Sometimes it is my fault, but again, that doesn't define me. What defines me is how I move beyond that. So they're my main tips for why your diet keeps on failing. And if you're someone that's watching this still and you want to see the first 4 weeks that I take all of my clients through so you can see exactly how you move beyond self-sabotage, set up nutrition in a way that works for you, make sure that you've got the right training program, how to train consistently and how to stay consistent and accountable in general, I'm going to I'll put the link for my 4 weeks of free coaching in the bio below. Feel free to just go and click the link and sign yourself up. And like I said, that will give you the first 4 weeks of coaching that every single one of my clients gets. Week by week. You get that for the next 4 weeks completely free. So thank you for taking the time to watch the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.